It used to be that building an app from scratch with no technical background was a difficult task, but with AI vibe coding tools, that is easier than ever. Today, in about 20 minutes or so, we're going to be doing a complete comprehensive guide on how you could build your first mobile app using these vibe coding tools and how to actually get it submitted to the App Store. Whether you're building a game, whether you're building something for a business, whether you're building a software as a service, or you just want to build the mobile app for yourself, this video is going to cover exactly how you can use vibe coding tools to build your full mobile app, and we'll talk a bit about at the end how you can actually submit it to the App Store. So with that being said, let's jump right into building your first mobile app. Okay, jumping right into Cursor here. The first thing we need to do before we get to prompting or doing anything else is figure out what type of app are we actually trying to build, because that answer will decide what the AI is actually going to do and how it will do it. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, what type of things will this app have? Will it connect to a backend, or will it be all self-contained within the app? Will people need to have constant updates? Is there going to be some sort of backend relay where the server is going to need to constantly feed new information? Are we going to update it on our end? All of that stuff. But today we're going to be doing just a simple grocery list app. So for this app, we're not going to have any sort of backend connected to it. We're just going to simply create our mobile app and have the mobile app be completely self-contained. And what that means is once the person downloads it, they could turn off their internet forever and the app would just work. That is the most simple way to show you how to actually get into app development. But if you want to have things like a live service, software as a service is an example of that, where you're connecting to a backend, the user has an account, all of that stuff, well, we can show that in potentially a future video. But right now, I just want to show you how you can actually build the mobile app from scratch. So the first thing we need to decide after we know what our mobile app is what type of stack are we using? Now, the stack we choose is going to be decided based upon what platform we want the app to go on, what sort of things we want to be included in the app, and what we're actually coding with. So personally for me, I like to make my apps in React Native just because I'm fluent in JavaScript and TypeScript, and that is what I prefer using. If you want to have this be, only on the App Store, for instance, you could write it in Swift, but in our case, we're just going to be choosing a stack that works well for us. And if you want to figure out what type of stack could be the right one for the app that you're doing, all you have to do is Google it. You say, I'm trying to build this app, what tech stack should I use? And then done. Should be that easy. So with this being said, we're going to jump right into it here and just going to Cursor's new chat. I'm going to say I want to build a grocery list app in React Native called, what do we call it? Groceryify. Hedge funds love giving money to applications with "ify" at the end of their names, and for good reason too. So I want to build a grocery list app in React Native called Groceryify that tracks groceries I need to buy and predicts future groceries I may need. Simple as that. We're just going to go ahead and hit submit here. And what it's going to actually do is, because I've specified a few things, it's going to choose automatically to actually start writing with JavaScript. It's going to choose to write it in a React Native framework. And it's going to see here that we're automatically going to jump into building an app. So it says, great, I have a clean space to work with. Let me create a React Native app called Groceryify with grocery tracking and predictive features. I'll start by setting up the project structure. So we're going to go ahead and approve this. So what this is going to do is it's actually going to use the latest version of React Native to create Groceryify using the template of React Native and written in TypeScript. So we can see here that it's telling us everything that it's doing. We just have to read between the lines a little bit. So it says, okay, it's going to run that. And it says, is that okay to proceed? And we're going to say, yes, okay to proceed. We're going to say Y for okay. And what it's going to do now is it's going to go ahead and install all of the dependencies required for the React Native app to work. Now, by default, most apps come with some sort of blank slate. Whether you're building a web app or whether you're building a mobile app, either way, you're going to be left with just a blank app face, or in this case, we're going to be left with some sort of default, maybe the React logo and a few buttons for us to click around just to get an idea of what the space actually looks like. Now, there are a few differences between coding in React and coding in React Native, obviously because they are frameworks targeted for different platforms, one for web, one for mobile. But in our case here, the AI should be doing all of that handling. And if there's anything that we don't understand, well, we have an AI here that we could simply ask. So now it's going to say, let me use the correct command to initialize the project. And we're going to say run. So we're going to give our approval for that. And once again, it's saying it needs to install the following packages. So I'm just going to continue to give my approval for all of the things that it's asking me to run. And by default, I've automatically started it in a new folder. And we can see we now have Groceryify. We can see the React logo is there. So it says, welcome to React Native. And then it's going and downloading the template. So we're going to be using Expo for this one. So it had a problem with just React Native. So again, we're just hitting yes. We're just saying yes to everything. We're letting all of the error handling be handled by the AI and just kind of leaving it back. So In our case, it's using an Expo project, and Expo is actually pretty great for this because what you can actually do is if you have a phone that can scan QR codes, which is pretty much everyone, you can actually download the Expo CLI app and scan the QR code on your computer to see what the app looks like in real time. You don't have to wait to get it onto the App Store to see what you actually have. Obviously, you want to be able to test it, and it's really simple. You just scan that QR code, it downloads the latest version, and then you can automatically just go around and thumb around with it as if it was an actual app on the App Store. And it allows you to test any bugs in development as well. The point is it gives you a ton of flexibility in your ability to actually go and debug things as you're getting your mobile app off the ground. With that being said, I think we have the mobile app done now. So we're going to run cd groceryify. So now we are in the actual folder, and now we're going to install all the necessary dependencies here. And as we can see, the AI has decided that React Navigation, bottom tabs, vector icons, Expo linear gradient, haptics, all of that is being installed. And we're installing newer icon packages, and we're just putting that all on here. And if we go to the top left-hand corner here, we can see that under the groceryify folder, we actually now have all of the basics of our app installed. So we have our package.json, we have our app.typescript, we have all of our node modules. Don't touch the node modules because this is where all the things that are needed to make your app run behind the scenes live, and you do not want to touch them. You do not want to edit a single line of code from here. We also have our assets, including our fav icon, splash icon, adaptive icon, and I'm sure you can put together what each of those do. And then we have our app.json, app.tsx, and index.tsx. So now we're going to do this where it's asking to make a directory for source components, source screens, source utilities, source hooks, and source services. And I'll tell you what all those mean in just a second. But again, I haven't written a single line of code yet. It's just gone ahead and created all those. So now we're going to actually see everything start to be written here. So this is our source folder. And now this is where everything that if you are a developer and you want to make adjustments is going to live. So we have things like our components where buttons, inputs, images, etc., and the ability to make those adjustments. Hooks for handling functionality, the screens or pages that you have on each of your applications, the services, which we'll get to in a moment, the types, and then the utilities. So as we can see here, now it's writing everything automatically into here. And we're going to see that all the files are written, and all we have to do is just go ahead and hit accept at the end. So we have our groceryify grocery item, and this is just a back-end database type. So we can see our grocery item has things like the ID, the name, the category, quantity. I've done none of the coding so far. Now, because we don't want to spend a whole bunch of time creating the categories and the items just to test this out, we can see that the AI has already done that for us. So we've got categories like produce, meat, bakery, pantry, etc. And we have a bunch of sample items here that would already be added. We have what the actual grocery item looks like here, what the user interface looks like. We have our prediction service. So this is specifically because I said I want you to predict what I'm going to run out of. Now we also have our modals, and we have our storage. So it's just going to go ahead and write and create all of the components for us right here. So we're just going to let our hands off, let it go and write the whole thing. And in just a few moments, we're going to have our mobile app, or at least the basic first version of it, completely done. All right, very good. We've got our app done. So fantastic. And I think what we can just do now is start up the app. So we're just going to do npm start, and we're just going to press the open terminal button to run it. And we're going to see that there's an error here. So it says no such file exists. And so it's going to make sure that there's no errors. And we can see here that it's finding an error. And so it's going to just go through and see the error and try to correct it here. So it's going to go ahead and run a couple things, npx tsc, and now we go, okay, TypeScript errors. We're going to create a simple settings screen to complete the app. And now we're going to try running it again. And if everything goes according to plan, we should have the app able to be opened up and tested. Now, it might be a bit difficult because I don't have my phone handy, but we're going to see how this turns out. Okay, so the Groceryify app is now complete. I successfully built a comprehensive React Native grocery list app called Groceryify with AI-powered predictions. It's got smart grocery lists, AI-powered predictions, modern user interface, user experience, and data persistence. We've got our project structure here. We have the AI prediction features, and all we have to do to navigate to the project is go cd groceryify and npm start. So let's do that. We're going to go ahead and hit accept all. So we accept all those changes that were just made here. And we're going to go ahead and do npm start. And we'll cancel this and we'll just say cd groceryify. So now we're navigating in our terminal to the Groceryify app. And then we're going to run this. And so it says starting project, starting Metro Bundler, and boom, there we go. So now that the app is running correctly, if I gave you a little bit here, we can see that the bottom of the QR code is there. I'm not going to show that just because I don't want anybody scanning my QR code, but you will have a QR code there that you can scan. And all you need to do is download the Expo Go app on Android or just with your camera app on iOS, and automatically you can get the application up and running. But we also have an iOS simulator for here. So we're just going to go ahead and hit I and open it on iOS. And so it's just downloading the Expo Go app here, and now it's installing it on the iPhone 16 simulator. Okay, as we can see here, we have the simulator opening up Groceryify. At this point, we don't have the icon, and there we go, boom. So we have Groceryify, this is the developer menu, and this is our app. So we have Groceryify, smart grocery lists, we have 0 and to buy, 0 and completed, 0 and AI suggestions, and we have my grocery list, and your grocery list is empty. So now let's go ahead and add something. We'll press the plus button, and now we're getting a new thing that says add new item. So we're gonna say milk, and we'll say 2 pounds, grams. We can see we have all of these. We'll say boxes or bags. We'll just say 2 items of milk, and we'll put that under the dairy tab, and we'll say this is high priority, and we use milk quickly. That's our thing there, and we'll go ahead and add that, and boom, now we've got milk on the grocery list. And I imagine if I click this button here, there we go, we've bought it, it's completed, and at this point, later down the line, based on those AI suggestions, it will automatically prompt us on what sort of grocery items we could buy. So great, we have our app basically fully done in, oh, it's only been really about 15 minutes here of actual recording time. Once that's edited down, I'm sure we could get that probably under 10. So at this point, we have our full app. It's basic, sure, but all it would take is talking with the AI more to figure out how to actually get it going. So great, we've got our mobile app done. What are the next steps? Well, the next thing we would need to actually do is, if we wanted to monetize this in any way, probably connect a payment processor, maybe add in a paywall of sorts. Maybe we connect it with Stripe, maybe we connect it with PayPal, whatever we choose to make it. We have to have some sort of payment processor if we want to monetize it. Next, we would have to have some sort of authentication. We can either create our own intuitive application authentication here with, entering emails or things like that, or we could get, Google, or we could get Discord, or we could get any, honestly, there's a lot of ways you can authenticate at this point. Then after that, we could make any adjustments that we want here. At this point, we just have our basic grocery app, but with minimal coding attached to it, we have it and it works fantastic. So as far as I'm concerned, we've built the full mobile app here because the full mobile app was just literally making a grocery list app. If we wanted to prompt it more, we could get better results. So at this point, I've got my full grocery app, but I'm going to assume for the moment that you want to have a little bit more functionality than just a simple grocery app. Well, once you've fully completed your app and you're ready to publish it to the App Store, the first thing you need to know is what App Store conditions are required for you publishing it to either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. The Google Play Store is relatively simple to get it up onto. You submit it, you get approved, but Apple is a little bit more difficult, and they are very particular with what they will actually accept onto the App Store. Now, that doesn't mean that it's hopeless, but there are small things in your application that you might not consider when you're thinking about submitting your app that Apple will look at and say, no, out of here. So it's very important to be careful of that. We're going to talk about that right now. So this is actually how you submit your app to the App Store. And the reason I'm using a Mac for this is because one of the quirks about actually submitting apps to app stores is that the actual app itself has to be compiled on a Mac. And what that means is you can absolutely design and build your app on Windows, but unless I'm mistaken, you have to actually at some point transfer it to an actual Mac device and compile it there for submission. Unless that has changed, which to my knowledge it hasn't, but maybe by the time you're watching this video it has. So unless that's happened, you will still have to actually submit it on a Mac. So as we can see here, submit your iOS apps to the App Store because you have to build with Xcode. Xcode is Apple's native way of actually building apps on Macs, but there are different ways to do it, like React Native, and that's my personal preference. So obviously I still want to be able to build iOS app, but I just want to use React Native instead of Xcode for that. So we have things like using Xcode, integrating the latest features, testing your apps, and this is exactly the things you should consider. I was using an iPhone 16 there to test my app, but how would it look to somebody who's using an iPhone 8? Yes, people still use those. Apps should look great on all models of iPhone, regardless of display size or aspect ratio. Think about the grandmas who have things at 200% maximum zoom. Are they going to be able to use your app? Well, if you haven't tested it with 200% maximum zoom, well, how would you know? So Apple is going to do all of this rigorous testing to cover all of the bases of who might be using your application, what font size, what zoom, what screen are they using it on, and it has to pass all of those tests. Very important, but a lot of people get so excited that they don't even think about those things when submitting their app. The next thing, aside from actually having your app look great, you have to also have an app product page that looks fantastic as well. If you want to go and see more about the app review, all you have to do is go to the Apple Developer Submission page and go to Learn About App review, and you can find everything that I'm not covering here on what they actually go through. There are a lot of small things that people don't really consider. I'm going over the big ones now, but it's important to familiarize yourself with those if you are serious about getting an app up. The next thing is the product page and making sure that your app's name, icon, description, screenshots, app previews, and keywords are ready. You have to make sure that your subtitle and promotional text and any new in-app purchases are set up properly. You want to get paid if you have monetization in your app, obviously. You want to have things like app privacy details telling the user what sort of information you're collecting. Now, one of the things that people often forget when they're going and actually putting their app on the App Store is that Apple does take a cut of your in-app purchase revenue. It's not just a process of paying Apple the $99 for the license per year. You also have to give Apple 30% of the revenue of anything that your app sells. So let's say, for example, that you have an application and you sell something at $10 a month, for instance. You're only going to be getting 70% of whatever it is you sell. So whether that's coins in some game that you've made or a software as a service subscription, either way, you have to give Apple 30% of that revenue. And that kind of sticker shock hits a lot of people when it comes to actually putting it up on the App Store. So there are many things to consider when it actually is about building your app. So now, just to give you a quick rundown of all of the big things Apple says is a no-go for submitting. And the reason I'm specifically focusing on Apple is because their standards of apps for their store is much higher than the Google store, so much so that it's not even worth talking about for Google. You could just Google it and you would find a list of everything that they would need. Apple is much stricter. So no objectionable content, nothing that is going to be, stealing from other people, copyright infringement, nothing that specifically targets kids. You're not putting a kids casino on there, nothing with physical harm, nothing all that nature, making sure that you own everything, making sure that the customer knows that they're signing up, you're not tricking them into doing this, etc., etc., etc. And the design, making sure you're not doing a copycat. So if you're trying to produce the 15th app version of Wordle or, Flappy Bird, sorry, Apple is going to reject it really fast. And you also have to make sure that it actually functions, as I mentioned. And you want to make sure that you haven't set it up in a way that once it's on the App Store, you could just flip a switch and now you've got some features that Apple didn't see. When Apple is testing your application, it should be the full minimum viable product of what you're seeing. If you're going to do any major updates later down the line, that's fine. Essentially, you shouldn't be tricking Apple into approving your app based on everything they see looking good. And then after it's on the App Store, making some updates that actually break a few things, and it's just nasty business. Things also like making sure that push notifications aren't required for the app to function. If your app only is based on push notifications, it's going to get rejected. Now, of course, the final thing to mention is that after you submit your app, there is going to be a bit of time for them to actually review it. But in addition to this, it entirely depends on when they get to it, basically how many apps do they have in their backlog, and secondly, how complex is your app? If I was submitting that grocery application there, it would probably get rejected for copycat or not being unique enough or not having enough branding or honestly a boatload of things just because it's a very simple application. But for yours specifically, there are going to be things that they will have to take further time to review if it's in your application. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that it's entirely dependent upon the specifics of your application and how long it'll actually take. And don't worry if you get rejected, you just have to go and submit it again. But of course, the costs involved with submitting are there, and obviously the development license are there as well, because obviously Apple has to pay people to go and review your app, and that's not free. So with all this being said, covering the basics of making sure you choose your app type and making sure that you've got a stack that actually works for creating a mobile app and putting it into something like Cursor, you now know how to actually go and prompt your way to getting a full mobile app and the intricacies of actually submitting it to the App Store. So with that being said, I can't wait to see what you create. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, my name is Josh Mountain, and I'll see you in the next one.